To build such difficult, expensive, and obviously monumental structures solely for the dead may seem a misplaced priority on a modern scale of values. But tomb building for the monarch was so inextricably tied to Egyptian life and thought that these structures must be understood in a much broader context. For one thing, the pyramid was the means by which the dead king climbed to the sky, a sort of ladder to the heavens, if you will. And then there was another important theological teaching. It held that the universe itself came from a pyramidal hill, which may offer some clue to the meaning and significance of the pyramid shape to the ancient Egyptians. Before the Egyptians built great pyramids of stone, high officials and even kings were buried in chambers under rectangular stone structures called mastabas. The mastaba remained the burial form of the well-to-do almost until the end of the Old Kingdom. But around 2650 BC, an architect and vizier named Imhotep designed for his king Zoser a truly elaborate tomb and created the world's first great monument in stone, the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. Previously, the use of stone in buildings had been limited. Most structures were made of mud brick. But here at Saqqara, we see the first architectural expression of the need to preserve the dead king in a tomb that would last forever. Zoser's pyramid is made up of 6 rectangular mastabas of decreasing size, one on top of the other. Underneath is the tomb chamber. From an engineering standpoint, the step pyramid was somewhat tentative. Blocks were cut small for ease of handling. Steep inclines were avoided. But the overall effect is stunning. Around the pyramid, there's a vast array of buildings constructed for important ceremonial purposes. And the entire complex was surrounded by a massive wall, nearly half a mile long and 33 feet high. Zoser's immediate successors opted for step pyramids of their own, but none were ever completed. This is Meidum, and the pyramid behind me was thought for many years to have belonged to Huni, the grandfather of Khufu. Recent scholarship now points to the possibility that it is yet another pyramid belonging to Sneferu, Huni's son and the father of Khufu. He was a busy guy. Meidum was begun as a 7-stepped pyramid and later enlarged to 8. After the king's death, the steps were filled in and the whole thing covered from top to bottom with smooth casing stones. The result was the first true pyramid. Beside its slope, Meidum also contained all the elements found in later pyramid complexes. A valley temple, now buried where the dead king was embalmed, was connected by this causeway to another temple adjacent to the pyramid where important pre-burial ceremonies took place. After burial, this is where daily offerings were brought and elaborate rituals performed. There was also a space about 10 yards deep between the temple and the pyramid in which 2 stelae dedicated to the king were displayed. The entrance to the underground tomb chamber was positioned above ground level on the pyramid's northern face. A narrow descending passage, this one is 190 feet long, leads to the tomb itself. The entrance was originally plugged with giant boulders and covered with casing stones to hide its location. And there is an additional feature this pyramid shares with the others, which is that despite all the effort that went into its construction, it failed to keep the tomb robbers out. When they were finally completed, pyramids and pyramid temples like this one at Giza were great hubs of activity. These temples used to be beautiful buildings, filled with statues and covered with wall decorations. The entire pyramid complex was designed to be perpetually maintained, and this required a sizable staff of priests and retainers, as well as workers to sustain them. Pyramid complexes became almost like small cities, cities for the maintenance, the worship, and the preservation of the god king.
Today marks the 20th year of construction on this plain of Giza. It is gratifying to see that many of the workers who began this project still labor here today in the service of the king. With my father's pyramid so well underway, it was time to begin work on the temple, in which he would be prepared by his priests for the afterlife.
Nebka, now that we have completed the pyramid temple, we're almost out of granite.
But that will be taken care of when Prince Kawab returns from his latest expedition to Nubia. Won't it?
Yes, let us hope so.
Noble Prince, we have seen Nubian warriors in the hills.
Pay them no mind.
But Great Prince Kawab, they appear to be heavily armed and prepared to attack.
Do you forget that I am the son of the living god Khufu? Those nomads cannot harm us. Forward, I say.
They will pay for this outrage. Those who offend the majesty of Re 1,000 times over, they will pay. This is the word of Khufu.
The loss of my cherished brother, Kawab, weighs heavily upon my father. He worries for Mart and the stability of this world when it will be his time to leave it.
At least you may take heart in having other fine sons who can take up the golden wings of Horus after you.
But it was Ankaf who had to tell my father that I, the next in line, had decided I could not be his successor. Trained my entire life as a scholar and scribe, I knew I could not fulfill the godly role of king. And so my younger brother, Baufra, will now someday take his place.
Hodedev wishes to remain a scholar and scribe, and has told your father he will not be king. This leaves Meretiti's third son, Baufra, to come before you in line.
Then what chance can there possibly be for me, Mother?
What chance was there for Baufra while Kawab lived? Your thoughts are not grand enough, my son. That is your only problem.
It was not long after Kawab's tragic passing that my three brave and royal brothers set out on a leopard hunt. Baufra, I am told, was envious of the noble animal Khafra had slain, but Jedefra generously confided to him where he might find an even greater leopard. When they discovered Crown Prince Baufra, he was dead. The huge leopard he sought was never found. And when my poor brother Jedefra had to relate the sad events to my father Khufu, his grief was unbounded.
Father?
At last, the prize is in sight. You, my son, will be the next king.
Rebellion in the south, the plundering of my grandfather's tomb, the loss of Kawab and now Baufra. Mart is surely out of balance and needs to be restored at once. If not, then what? It is even possible my father's pyramid would not be completed within his life on Earth.
I have given these matters much thought, my lord. I have heard of a wise old magician, Dedi by name, a man of 110 years, who lives not one day's boat ride from here. It is said of him that he even knows how to reattach a head that has been cut off, and has predicted many things in his life. Surely he will know what is to become of your reign and your royal issue.
Hodedev, my son, go yourself and bring this Dedi here to me.
We stayed the rest of the day in Dedi's village and accepted the hospitality of his household. For me, it was an experience to be remembered and cherished, as I had never before been afforded the opportunity to observe how common people lived. And the next morning, Dedi appeared before the king, my father, to tell him what his magic had discerned. Would any of Khufu's issue survive to be king? And would his great dynasty continue?
Sovereign Khufu, my lord, may you live, prosper, and be in health. Your dynasty will not end yet. I see 2 of your issue who will assume the mantle of Horus as king of all the land.
Thanks be to Re, my father.
One will rule a brief time only. He will be reviled in his own time and defamed when he is gone. The other will be strong and brave. He will rule for many years, and Egypt will grow even greater under him. He will do you honor and guard your sacred house of eternity. And his proud face will be known until the end of time.
But I have many children yet. Which are the 2 of whom you speak?
There are some things not even a magician may know.
And it was not long afterward that the wise old Dedi took leave of this earth himself, leaving behind a mystery that only time could now unravel.